Liam Lawson got the second seat at Red Bull after a big argument about the Austrian team's choice. They passed over Tsunoda again, but since the Japanese driver has more experience and we all hope to see him next to Verstappen starting in 2025, did Red Bull mess up? And if they didn't mess up, what's going to happen for both drivers now that Tsunoda has the best chance to make a strong return with Aston Martin starting in 2026? This whole big story has finally ended. Liam Lawson got moved up to the second seat at Red Bull, and it looks like the 11 races he did with Racing Bulls were enough for Horner to decide if he's the right person for the team starting in 2025. What Red Bull didn't see coming this season, especially after the first 5 races, was how badly they started doing. This let McLaren and Ferrari beat them in the team championship, so they really needed to get a strong second driver who wouldn't finish 8th in the driver rankings, cost €5 million in car fixes, and not get tired throughout the whole season. That driver they picked was Lawson. Even though the F1 news people are mad now, we remember when many news outlets said they wanted to see the New Zealand driver next to Verstappen. Either way, Horner explained why Lawson was picked over Tsunoda. This should give the Japanese driver lots of reasons to prove what he can really do in the future with a much better team. Lawson himself said thank you to the team for the amazing chance they gave him. This is pretty rare because he's only done 11 races as a full-time F1 driver. This means Red Bull is putting lots of hope in his skills. The 22-year-old said, "Being announced as an Oracle Red Bull racing driver is something I've dreamed about my whole life. This is something I've wanted and worked towards since I was 8 years old. It's been an incredible journey so far. I want to say a huge thank you to the whole team at VCarb for helping me. The last 6 races have been huge practice for this next step. I also want to thank Christian, Helmut, and the whole Red Bull family for believing in me and giving me this chance. I'm super excited to work with Max and learn from a world champion. I know for sure I will learn from his skills. I can't wait to get started." The team boss of Red Bull, Christian Horner, also talked about this as he answered the question we all have in our heads. Why Lawson over Tsunoda, and why not the driver who had 4 years of experience in the sport? It's probably Tsunoda's bad temper that played a huge part in this choice, but it still looks like it was a very close decision. While Tsunoda's story with Red Bull isn't completely over, we can say for sure that he will be looking for his own payback against the team that promised him a lot, but passed him over every single time there was a chance to move him up to a bigger role and see what he could really do. When talking about it, Horner said, "It was very, very close between Liam and Yuki. I mean, Yuki is a very fast driver. He's got 3 or 4 seasons of experience now. He did a very good job in the tire test in Abu Dhabi, where the engineers were impressed with how well he did. But we just felt with Liam, when you look at the numbers of his race speed, it was slightly better in the races that he did. His qualifying speed was very close to Yuki's. And you've got to think that Liam's potential, having only done 11 races, is only going to get better and stronger. He's shown real mental strength and toughness. The engineers have enjoyed working with him throughout all the driving he's done this year. He's got a good work attitude as well. So it's great to have Yuki still involved with Racing Bulls next year, and of course he's on backup if he's ever needed." Well, the backup process probably won. That happened for Tsunoda, because he said himself that he doesn't understand what more he can do to get moved up to Red Bull. Even with the tire test going so well, and him giving such great advice to the engineers, the only excuse the Austrian team has right now is that they would be scared that Tsunoda could be stolen by Honda and Aston Martin starting in 2026. We must not forget that there have been lots of changes in the Silverstone team, with Newey and Honda getting back together after their Red Bull days. With people like Cardile and Cowell coming from Ferrari and Mercedes, this gives Aston Martin quite a lot to hope for. While it's hard to predict that Lawrence would give up his own son's future now that everything is going his way in terms of making the team better for the new rule era, there might be some forces that would be stronger than him in this quest. With the aging Alonso closer to retiring than ever, Tsunoda might team up with Stroll as well. But if you were to hire some of the best engineering talents in the world of Formula One, you'd expect that they'd want to work with the best drivers as well. While Tsunoda hasn't had the chance to prove that he is such a driver, because he's driven with a middle-level team at its best, he's beaten drivers like Ricciardo, De Vries, and Lawson, and was still very overlooked by the Austrian team when it came to the promotion next to Verstappen. Part of this could be because Verstappen's future isn't certain either, and the Dutch driver has spoken loud and clear that he needs to see how the new rules would affect the racing before he makes a decision about whether or not he will end his contract with Red Bull, which goes until 2028. Still, Horner opened up about Lawson's opportunity and said the most important thing for the New Zealand driver, now that he got the hardest job in the world, being Verstappen's teammate and keeping up with him while driving a very shaky car. He added, "I think the key is not to put too much pressure on him and not to put too much pressure on himself that he's going out against the best driver of his generation. I think that he just needs to almost ignore the information of what's going on in Car 1 and just focus with his own engineering team on what he's doing and just do the best job that he can, and he'll be fine. And hopefully we can help him with that. Hopefully we'll be able to give him a car that works for him as well as Max next year, and we'll see how he does." But what we cannot ignore is how Tsunoda was treated by Red Bull throughout the whole campaign of the Austrian team. Being part of them for 4 years and having just one chance to drive a Red Bull car, which happened at the end of the 2024 season tire test, it's kind of embarrassing for him as a driver. So he can't have more reasons than this to prove that he's not the type of driver they think he is, although he still needs to work on his temper and his anger problems that have messed up most of his races and qualifying sessions. This is something that he admitted himself, and obviously when you don't have the fastest car in your hands or when you're not fighting for podiums, it's hard to prove how good you are. But Yuki has been praised by everyone in the F1 world for driving incredibly well in what seems to be one of the worst cars on the track for the past couple of years. This is why it hurts so much to see him being treated the way that he is by Red Bull. It goes without saying he would be working on the Honda relationship to try and get a seat starting in 2026 again. Even though the chances of him replacing Lance Stroll are very small, because the Silverstone team has been clear that the project revolves around him as much as it does around Alonso, we cannot ignore the fact that Alonso would be in his 45th year when the 2026 season starts. While he's a top-notch driver, Aston and Martin needs to think about their future as well. Honda will have a lot to say here because the 2026 rules will revolve massively around the engine and battery power. This is why Aston Martin is betting heavy money on being good enough for race wins and podiums sooner rather than later. The comeback project is underway, and Tsunoda will likely battle Lawson starting in 2025, as he'll be more than happy to put him on his enemy list, as well as add him to the victims of his performance. Yuki said proudly that he doesn't mind destroying Red Bull's academy drivers as long as it means that he will get moved up to the main seat next to Verstappen. But the latest move has likely gone to show that this is not going to happen unless something goes terribly wrong for Lawson. And Yuki will get the call in a similar way, like Gasly was replaced with Albon back in 2019. With all of this in mind, do you think that Lawson has what it takes to be the proper replacement for Verstappen? And furthermore, do you think that Tsunoda will use this as proper motivation to show Red Bull what they're missing out on? Let us know in the comments below, and once you do that, make sure to click on the video that's appearing on your screen right now.